The year was 1640, perhaps 1641. Miyamoto Musashi was no longer young. He had stopped dueling. He lived in a cave outside Kumamoto writing. He was invited to the castle, not summoned, invited. The Hosokawa clan gave him a small stipend. They left him alone. Sometimes they asked him to demonstrate his sword style. He came when he wished. On this day, he came. The hall was full. Retainers of the domain, samurai of various ranks. Musashi sat near the edge of the room. He was in his 50s. His hair was beginning to gray. He wore plain clothing. He carried 2 swords, but they were unremarkable. Someone entered late, a younger samurai. Well-dressed, his family had standing. He walked with the posture of a man who had been told he mattered. He saw Musashi. He stopped walking. What happened next was recorded by several witnesses. The younger samurai stood in the center of the room. He looked at Musashi. He spoke loudly enough for others to hear. He said that Musashi's reputation was inflated, that his fame came from luck, not skill, that the men he had killed were not true swordsmen, that he had avoided fighting anyone of real standing. He said this clearly, slowly. He paused between statements. The room became very still. Musashi did not move. He did not look up. He sat with his hands resting on his knees. His expression did not change. The younger samurai continued. He said that Musashi's style was unorthodox because it was undisciplined, that his 2-sword technique was theatrical, that he had won duels by arriving late and using tricks. He said that if Musashi were truly confident, he would accept a match. Musashi remained silent. The silence was not brief. It stretched, long enough that people began to shift in their seats, long enough that the younger samurai's voice began to sound louder than it was. He repeated the challenge. He asked if Musashi had become too old to fight. He suggested that Musashi was afraid. Musashi looked at him, not quickly. He turned his head slowly. His gaze was calm, empty of anger, empty of defense. He looked at the younger samurai the way one might look at a distant bird. Then he looked away. He did not speak. The younger samurai's face changed. His jaw tightened. His shoulders rose slightly. He had expected resistance. Resistance would have given him something to push against. He tried again. He said that silence was the refuge of cowards, that a true swordsman would answer an insult. Musashi scratched his chin, a small gesture, absent-minded, as though he were alone and thinking about something else entirely. The younger samurai's voice grew sharper. He asked if Musashi had heard him. He demanded acknowledgement. Musashi said nothing. The room had divided. Half the people were watching the younger samurai. Half were watching Musashi. The ones watching Musashi saw that he had not tensed. He had not prepared. He had not shifted his weight. He sat as he had been sitting. The younger samurai took a step forward. He was breathing harder now. His hand moved toward the hilt of his sword, not drawing it, just touching it. Musashi glanced at the hand, then at the face, then back to the middle distance. He exhaled slowly. The younger samurai stopped moving. What broke the confrontation was not Musashi. It was time. The younger samurai stood in the center of the room and no one joined him. No one spoke in his support. No one asked Musashi to respond. The silence became his alone to carry. He stood there for what must have felt far longer than it was. Then he turned. He walked toward the door. His footsteps were loud on the wooden floor. He left the hall. Musashi sat as he had been sitting. Someone coughed. Conversation resumed. Musashi stayed for the rest of the gathering. He spoke with a few people, not about what had happened, about painting, about a sword guard someone wanted him to examine. He left when the gathering ended. He walked back to his cave. The younger samurai did not return to the castle for several weeks. When he did return, he did not speak to Musashi. He did not speak about Musashi. He resumed his duties without incident. Years later, after Musashi had died, the younger samurai was asked about the encounter. He said only that he had been young and foolish. He did not elaborate. The incident was recorded by retainers who were present. It circulated among swordsmen. It became one of the stories told about Musashi, not the most famous, not the most dramatic. What they remembered was not violence. It was stillness. It was the way Musashi had sat, unmoved, while someone tried to pull him into a fight that had no purpose. What they remembered was that the younger samurai had walked away, and Musashi had remained. What they remembered was silence. Musashi lived 3 more years. He finished his book. He gave away most of his possessions. He sat in his cave and watched the seasons change. When he died, he was alone. The younger samurai lived much longer. He served his clan well. He trained students. He never spoke publicly about Musashi again, but he attended the memorial service. He stood in the back. He burned incense. He did not stay long. The hall where they met is gone now. The records remain. The story remains. Musashi sat in a room and did nothing while someone tried to make him into an enemy. And by doing nothing, he made it impossible for the confrontation to continue. That is what was recorded. That is what happened.